The Pittsburgh Pirates selected Paul Skenes number 1 overall last night. And guess what? I brought Gary along for the ride to talk about it some more. Because we've talked about it a lot, but we can keep talking about it here on the Locked On Pirates podcast, brought to you by Sleeper.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to that Pirates podcast, everybody. My name is Ethan Smith. That is Gary Morgan. It is Gary Morgan Monday, as it always is here on the Locked On Podcast Network. As you guys may have noticed, I have internet again, so I can actually not have to record shows or be on Louisiana news networks on the side of a brewery building to steal their internet. Last night was fun. The Pirates drafted Paul Skenes. Gary did a wonderful live stream over a Pirates fan forum for about an hour. I had an episode yesterday. You guys got to see Lindsey Crosby be live on my channel yesterday. So let's talk about it some more, because why not? Because one thing that I'll start with, and I'm going to steal from Gary's chat yesterday. I forget who said it, but while I was there, aren't you glad that's over? You don't have to hear about Max Clark anymore, Wyatt Langford, Dylan Cruz, Paul Skenes, even Walker Jenkins' name got thrown in there every once in a while. Now we know. And I think the only other controversy I've seen lately that's been kind of generated by media, quote unquote, is he going to hit or not? And I think plainly that answer is no. I just don't think he does it after not doing it for a full year. But, Gary, I think we already know how most people feel about this pick. I think it was a very solid pick. What does it entail for this team? I mean, there's a lot to be happy about. Obviously, there's those things that you always have to worry about when drafting a pitcher. But is he that good to where those things might not really affect his career much?
I mean, everybody that does this professionally sure as heck thinks so. It seems like he's a difference maker and a different kind of pitching prospect, one that we haven't seen since guys like Strasburg. You know, when they start saying names like that, you should take that seriously, man.
Yeah.
Like, people don't just throw those comps around like lightly. I think especially people like Jim Callis and you hear guys like him and Bob Mayo talking about how generational this guy is, and there was a couple of them that said, I just can't understand how you could let him slip past you. Yeah. I heard, like, on ESPN they kept saying that. Even like, I just don't see how you have an opportunity to draft Paul Skenes and let him go. And with the top of the board being what it is, there was this year, that's a heck of a statement right there. Because I think there were 3 or 4 legitimate claims to the number 1 spot this year. And to many of the experts, it still seemed that Paul Skenes had separated himself more.
Yeah, and I agree too. And that's one thing that I was saying through the pre-draft process is if Paul Skenes, Max Clark, Dylan Cruz, and Wyatt Langford were in 4 separate drafts, they would all be the number 1 pick, realistically, if they were just in 4 separate drafts by themselves. And that was one thing that I found interesting, too, is even after the Pirates selection of Paul Skenes, you would hear all these guys saying, yeah, that was the right decision. He is just that good. He was in his own tier. But then what I found even more interesting is the top 5 went off the board in the top 5. Teams, it wasn't just the Pirates that didn't overthink this. Like, Washington said, okay, cool, Cruz wants his money. We're going to give him his money. The surprise to me was that Clark went before Langford. But, man, that Texas, just off topic for a second, Wyatt Langford going to Texas with that team that they already have, if he develops into a very good player and they find pitching over the next couple of years, you might have a new powerhouse in the AL West. I'm just gonna say that out here right now. But also the other part of this too is there always is the talk about money after this. And we've seen reports about it. It's not official yet, but we've seen reports about it that Skenes might sign at $9.25 million. I thought he'd be in the range of 9.5. If he signs at 9.25 million, you got a $500,000 under slot. That's a big deal. That is a big deal.
It's under slot, and it's still a record-setting, bonus pool. So there's nothing really to complain about here. They didn't make this pick to go cheap. I honestly believe just about anybody would have taken pretty much that. Paul Skenes obviously has agreed to it with the Pirates in some capacity. They'll get this done. You don't make a selection like that unless you're getting it done. So I would expect that it'll be somewhere around there. And I mean, good for them. I don't think it's going to help them very much. I don't think that $500,000 is going to matter much at the back end of this. And if they were going to do anything with that, you would have thought that would have been done in the second round with the 42nd pick. And I don't think they did that. I feel like that player was just available there, probably should have been. And
yeah, Mitchell Jebb, by the way, is who Gary is talking about in MLB Pipeline. I believe he was ranked like 45th, and they drafted him at 42. So they drafted him pretty much where he was slated to go. And then 67, I believe they drafted an Ole Miss commit pitcher to end the night. I won't lie to you, I fell asleep because all of my excitement of drafting Paul Skenes made me very tired. But also the other thing that I wanted to bring up too, and this was something I brought up on my show yesterday, is the idea that I'm just assuming here, like, let's make this wild, like, hot take that Paul Skenes is going to be a top 15 prospect in the Pirates system. Whoa, yeah, guys, clip that one and send it to Old Takes Exposed. But I was looking at just the prospect list, and I really enjoy looking at these lists as far as the numbers go. Once you throw Skenes into that list, there's a possibility that 8 guys in that top 15 are pitchers. And obviously, we know not all pitchers work out. We've seen that as Pirates fans. We don't develop a ton of pitching historically. But let's just say out of that 8, 2 of them work out alongside Mitch Keller. I think Skenes, I don't want to say Skenes is a given because anything can happen, but he's about as good as a given as you're going to get. Say the other one is Jared Jones or Quinn Priester. I mean, you're talking about a possibility, I would say, and we'll get into the realistic ETA after the break, at some point of having, hopefully, if they extend him, Mitch Keller, Paul Skenes, and one of those other 7 guys. That's very nice to, like, think about, but obviously a lot can change.
Sure, a lot can change. I don't like to do the projection things. I think there's always just too much of a guessing game. Keller, is going to be there. You hope Skenes joins him. You have to like a mix of kind of what you're working with already as far as slotting in next. You got Oviedo, you got Rawanzi, you got Ortiz. You're hoping one of them, 2 of them finds their footing here. And they're going to have to go out and get a free agent, and they're going to. Like, at some point. That's kind of always going to be a thing. And then the rest of these guys are just going to trickle in. Like, I mean, I'm on record saying I think that Quinn Priester's probably going to take a little bit of development time. I think he has to be more of a pitcher than a thrower, and that takes work.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see a little bit of trial and error with him to get him into the rotation. Jared Jones is a little bit more natural, a stuff guy. You could see him kind of work his way up a little quicker, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But Saul Meadows going to force his way into that conversation pretty soon, right? And you can't be upset when you have what appears to be a wealth of things. You also never know how many of these guys actually have starting pedigree in them.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them wind up going to the bullpen? We just saw this year what an attrition can happen to a pitching depth situation when injury crops up. So,
And another thing before we go to the ad break that I wanted to bring up about this too, Pirates fans, is this isn't just a Pittsburgh thing. And I'm so happy this didn't happen in Pittsburgh. But Yuri Perez had to be sent down to the minors because they're managing his innings. If you watched any semblance of Yuri Perez when he's been up here in Miami, he's just fine. He's a very good pitcher. It's just the fact that he's not used to the workload yet. They have to manage his innings. Everybody does this. Everybody does it.
Manage the innings / manipulate the time.
Manipulate the service time. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. Now, as I always say about pitching too, and I think me and Gary have actually talked about this before, just multiply 9 by 162, and that's the amount of innings every MLB team has to get out of their pitchers every year. You'd be surprised by the number. By the way, if, you're struggling a little bit, I deal with it. Everybody deals with it. Make sure you go to BetterHelp. BetterHelp, of course, is sponsoring today's show. If you benefit from therapy, feel free to share your experience with people. Therapy is very good for people. It's something that everybody has to do at one point or another. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get $10% off your first month. Not $10, 10%. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. Everydayers, love you. Love yins. You're going to get 5 episodes this week. I'm sorry. My internet crapped the bed last week. If you want to listen to the radio, hometown broadcast, Sirius XM, just download the XM app. Very, very cool. And now I think going into more Skenes conversation here, and I think one of the bigger conversations that we've seen on it, he had a big workload at LSU this year. Obviously went very deep to the College World Series. And guys, you can already, the thing I love about this thing over here is you can and I pointed the whole wrong direction, is you guys can kind of see what we're going to talk about next. The workload was there. And I think one of the bigger questions is, does he pitch this year at all? Now, I mean, I don't know if he pitches a big workload. I don't think that happens at all. But to say he won't pitch at all, I don't really know yet. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too, Gary, because I think you might have a little bit more of a know about when these pitchers are taking super high alpha workloads.
I really don't in this case. I mean, we have Ben Charrington's comments yesterday, which seemed to leave the door open that he could pitch in the system this year. Seemed to even leave the door open that he could pitch in major leagues this year. I don't see the benefit in that. I don't see the realism in that. I think if anything, he gets a little bit of time at the Florida Complex League this year to get his feet wet and get acclimated. Almost back in school when you used to go in to meet your teachers and pretend that you were figuring out your path for the day or how you were going to walk from locker to classroom and whatnot. Yeah. It's a dry run that you probably don't really need. I think something along those lines you could see. If he gets into actual pitching, though, competitive pitching this year for the Pirates, I would be kind of shocked, to be honest with you. I think I'd probably just start clean with him next year. That said, I'd want to get eyes on him if I'm them. I'd bring him to the Complex League and start working on some technique and mechanic type stuff and be ready to hit the ball rolling and know what he's going to do in the offseason plan. Maybe even set up, hey, you want to pitch in the fall, in the Arizona Fall League. That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, and that's what I think the realistic trajectory for him is. I think they will kind of just shut him down, get a look at him, send him, as you said, to the Florida Complex League. Because the guy, albeit he has been portrayed as a generational talent, he has things to work on. You guys heard me talk about it yesterday. You look at the grades on MLB Pipeline that he has. His fastball is going to play everywhere. Just let that be known right now. I mean, literally the words almost unhittable to hit, almost impossible to hit were used in his fastball projection. The slider is very good too. It's a 70 grade. He still has a changeup that he has to work on a little bit. One of the things that a lot of people had issues with in his changeup is he struggles to find the zone with it. That's something that they'll obviously work on through the system with him. But with a realistic ETA on this, as far as does he pitch this year, I really truthfully think, and I said this yesterday too, and said this when I was on the news station KALB in Louisiana, I think he starts in AA next year, probably pitches well, moves up to AAA pretty quickly. By pretty quickly, I mean like first 3 or 4 months of his career. Maybe, I don't know, maybe gets the cup of coffee at the end of 2024. And when I mean the end of 2024, I'm talking like September call-ups, not August. I'm talking like maybe mid-September, and then go into spring training and evaluate what you want to do with them in 2025. That's just
it's a realistic ETA. I mean, it's probably what I would, recommend if I was sitting down and trying to write the cautious path forward. I think that's what you would think would be acceptable. I will say that I think we've seen Ben Cherington be a little bit more aggressive recently with some of these top picks, and when he feels they're ready, he's not holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people understand the significance of what happened with Henry Davis this year. Despite what fans think and believe and hoped, he was not expected to be here right now. He was expected to be that September cup of coffee call-up. He was not expected to get called up here and force his way onto the team before they even felt he was ready to catch. I mean, you never know what a prospect's really going to do and show you. I don't think that Paul Skenes is going to just walk in and be in the starting rotation come spring next year. But I think he'll be at spring training, and I think an awful lot of people are going to watch him pitch and think he's exactly ready.
Yeah, and that's just the kid he is. I mean, he's really just that good. And obviously there's going to be things that are going to happen throughout any pitcher's career. And I've heard a lot of people say they don't like the comp to Steven Strasburg because what is happening to Strasburg right now. Albeit, yes, I hope he gets healthy. The kid he's a phenomenal person off the field. He's a phenomenal pitcher. But I think a lot of people forget that Steven Strasburg helped bring a World Series to the Washington Nationals.
Well, you can hate the comp. I think he comps better to Garrett Cole anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I even saw somebody yesterday say Spencer Strider in my comments. I said, if Paul Skenes turns into Spencer Strider, I think everybody's happy in Pittsburgh if he turns into that. But I think he comps very well to Garrett Cole also. And a lot of people were also having thoughts about Garrett Cole's time here in Pittsburgh. Yeah, you can argue.
A lot of people have false thoughts about Garrett Cole's time in Pittsburgh because they were hard done by with the move to trade him like it was his fault.
Yeah.
And they didn't like all the argument about pay, so they decided to turn him into the great Satan a long time ago. But Garrett Cole was a good pitcher and a success story for a pick that high as a pitcher. To get him to come up and be that effective that you're throwing him out in playoff series that quickly. That's the dream. That's what you hope Dylan Cruz does. So,
well, I hope Dylan Cruz does it in Washington. I just hope Paul Skenes does it in Pittsburgh.
No, Paul Skenes. I'm sorry, man.
Hey, I know the whole debate just ended yesterday, Gary. I know that's all fresh on your mind still. So you know.
I'm in San Francisco, so there's a little bit of fog.
Yeah, just a little bit. But again, with the Paul Skenes stuff, there's a lot to talk about here, and then we'll talk about just some more Skenes stuff here in a moment. Make sure you guys go download Sleeper though. Go make some money. Might as well. Get up to a $100 match on your first deposit on mobile only. Please don't go to the actual website and expect this deposit. It's a mobile only promo. Sleeper.com/promo/locked-on. You know, if you want to win 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball, Sleeper is now offering up to a 100 times payout for up to 8 pick contests. Choose as many as 8 players that you like and pick more or less on your favorite baseball stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. And you can get your picks right and you could win big. Of course, the Sleeper app, very easy to use, very fun to use, all that good stuff as well. Sleeper contests are always available for you all the time. And again, use the promo code Locked On in full caps to get a $100 match, up to a $100 match on your first deposit on mobile only. So now let's just have fun about Paul Skenes here, and let me create him into a literal monster. So he already throws a fastball that's practically untouchable at 98, 99, can top out 102. His slider is very good. He has a power changeup that sits around 89 to 93. You know what? Let's have fun. Could he find a fourth pitch, Gary?
Sure, why not?
Why not? Why not? Right? I mean,
why
let's
not?
just make him. Let's like literally make him unbeatable.
I mean, he might have to. If the concerns about the changeup are real, and he's not able to control it, he may have to come up with something else that he offers to keep people off of the velocity. The fastball, I have seen some of the descriptions that it's unhittable and whatnot. I've seen some other things similar to that, but I think he needs a little more movement in order to keep people off it. I think people underestimate the ability of Major League Baseball players to hit velocity. They'll time anything up. 102 miles an hour is awful fast, and it's hard to hit, but you throw it consistently enough and people can time it up, they'll hit it. So I think he has a little bit of work to do there. As far as a fourth pitch goes, sure, I don't see why not.
Yeah,
I think that's possible. I also don't think he's ever felt the need to have it.
no.
So he may need to get hit before he feels like he needs to develop it.
Yeah, and that's something that I think will just be a part of the maturation of Paul Skenes. And I mean, the kid is already very mature. And I've also joked already that based off of his interview on ESPN last night, that him and Brian Reynolds are going to be best friends because neither of them talk like at all. And it was like cookie cutter answers, which I loved. I was like, yay, Brian Reynolds has a friend in the clubhouse now who's just going to sit there and just do his thing and play baseball. And they both have mustaches. Are we sure that Paul Skenes and Brian Reynolds just aren't the same person, and Brian Reynolds has just like had a side job the whole time that he's been in Major League Baseball? And then, I mean, we'll have a little fun here in the last segment too. They did ask Paul Skenes about if he would be a two-way player. He said that he would focus on pitching. He wouldn't leave out hitting. For those of you that don't know, slash line at Air Force, very good. He was a very good hitter at Air Force. Moves to LSU with Wes Johnson's coaching staff. Strictly pitching. As I said before, I don't think he does it. I don't think the Pirates get cute with it. I don't think they're going to try to create a Shohei Ohtani type player. I just don't think they need to. But I mean, does he? is there just like some fun that he has with it every once in a while, or I don't know.
I look at it this way: they let Bubba Chandler try it because it meant something to him. So if it means something to not Dylan Cruz, I keep going back to that, Paul Skenes, why not? If it's something he wants to try, I don't care. I don't think it's going to hurt anything to let him hit a little bit. I mean, I think we're talking about like if you really are thinking of it as like a Shohei Ohtani situation, which he's the only player that's ever really done it, besides Babe Ruth. So I don't know how realistic it is to expect that's going to come along just because you're open to it or whatever. But if you've got a guy that can actually hit and you want to try and turn him into a DH when he's not pitching, why not? Have at it. Like, what's it going to hurt to find out?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. I think I would rather him just focus on pitching because that's obviously what got him selected here. I mean, we keep talking about what scouts were saying. Some said if he would have became just a pure offensive hitter, like if he would have just been an offensive player, he would have probably graded in the top 3 rounds. That's fine. But
yeah, I heard that too, but I
I
think
don't think so.
if let's say that it was as impressive as we're being led to believe now, or as important as we're being led to believe now. Why would he have stopped doing it when he got to the SEC? Like
It's very, very odd.
I would think like, well, I mean, then again, you look at LSU's team and maybe they didn't really need him. Like they had enough offense going on with some of his teammates. So perhaps there was just no incentive to do it. Maybe they thought, oh, well, if we just focus on pitching, we can turn him into blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think once you see them take that away from him moving to the SEC, that to me kind of tells me, we think this is your future kid. Like that's cool, but you did that at Air Force. Those numbers are great, but you did that at Air Force.
Yeah.
And
I always joke too, Gary, that obviously I live in Georgia. I always joke I hear about SEC football being that curtain above of everybody else in college football. This is my joke now that I tell people because they don't understand it at all. SEC baseball is what SEC football fans think SEC football is now. It used to be that. I will say it used to be that. It used to just be SEC and everybody else in football. Baseball, it is truly SEC versus everybody else. Just go look at the past College World Series winners over the last 7 or 8 years. I think there's only 2 that work from the SEC. Yeah. And I think it was Oregon State, and I forget who the other one was. But that's what even makes, to me, Paul Skenes more impressive, is the fact that he moved over from Air Force to LSU, becomes a full-time pitcher, and leads Division I in strikeouts, has a phenomenal ERA. I think he had a .750 whip last year in the SEC level. And I just love, too, that everybody's like, we were really hoping to see him pitch Game 3 of the College World Series. And then, of course, LSU wins 20 or 16-4 or something. I can't even remember what the scores of those games were. Final thoughts on Skenes, Gary, before we get out of here.
I think they got a very mature player and person, good leader, a lot of leadership qualities that I think Ben Cherington seems to be seeking out with his top of the board, C. Henry Davis. I think he likes a certain type. He has a type, and it's a leader in the room type.
Yeah.
So more of those that he can pile up, the better, as long as they don't compete for who's the most leadery of the leaders.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you have Ultimate Baseball GM for one of our old sponsors issues where you have too many of the egos in the locker room. That won't happen, though.
Like the Padres.
Yeah, well, yeah, by the way, before we leave on that, somebody posted the other day that the top 3 payrolls in baseball wouldn't make the playoffs if it ended today. So just remember, baseball is very fun. By the way, those top 3 teams, I believe, are the Yankees, Padres, and Mets. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Pirates. I have absolutely no idea what's going to be on Gary's 5 Thoughts at 5 today. Not a clue at all. But check that out. Of course, I believe you'll be live or Thursday for the Fan Forum episode.
We're going to do it Wednesday this week at 9 to try to accommodate my schedule. So
yes, because Gary is a traveling man. It's that time of year. He's dealing with the fog out in San Francisco, all that good stuff. But some news from me, practically confirmed now. I will probably be in Pittsburgh September 15th through the 17th for the Roberto Clemente Day series against the New York Yankees. So you guys can all stop asking me to come to Pittsburgh for a series. I try. It costs a lot of money, but I'm going to make it happen. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. Make sure you follow Gary at GaryMo2007 and follow the Pirates Fan Forum. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and we'll see you on the flip side.